I was 22 when my stepmother accused me of assaulting her. It wasn't true. It was never true. But my father believed her without asking me a single question, and that betrayal wrecked my life. 7 years later, the truth came out. And what happened next blew our entire family apart. My name's Carter, and this story begins when I was just a shy 9-year-old boy caught in the quiet mess of a divorce. My parents, Brian and Denise, separated peacefully, and somehow managed to maintain a joint custody arrangement that worked. Mom had me during the week so I could be near school, and Dad got weekends. I was young, naive, and believed that since both parents were kind to me, the world was still fair. But fairness has an expiration date, and mine arrived wrapped in pearls and perfume, smiling sweetly from behind my father's arm. Her name was Laura, and I met her when I was 11. She had this polished, practiced warmth that fooled me instantly. Dad looked so happy I didn't question it. He was finally laughing again. I wanted that to last. Laura had twin daughters, Harper and Haley, who were a few years older than me, 14 at the time. From the get-go, they were loud, dramatic, and a little cruel. They'd scream at waiters in restaurants, cry when they didn't get their way, and had zero problem making scenes. I, on the other hand, was the quiet kid who read books at the table and used please too often. After a year of dating, Dad and Laura got married. I was 12, and I still remember the matching cream suits, the champagne flutes, even my mom showing up for the wedding out of sheer grace. I was hopeful. Stupidly hopeful. A few months later, Laura sat me down one morning. She waited until Dad left for a client meeting. I had barely buttered my toast when she leaned in, looked me straight in the eye, and said, "Let's be clear, I don't like you. But we're going to pretend we get along when your father's home. Understand?" I blinked. I thought she was joking. She wasn't. She followed it up with, "You look too much like your mother. And I can't stand your voice." I was 12. I nodded, terrified. The twins overheard and giggled later that night, whispering that Dad only kept me around because he felt guilty, that he loved them more. I ran to Mom in tears. She called Dad immediately. He brushed it off and said I must have misheard Laura. "She's just under stress, Carter. Be patient. She's trying." Trying? She was trying to erase me. From that moment forward, Laura transformed. Around Dad, she was a Stepford angel. Behind closed doors, she was a shark with lip gloss. When I was alone with her, she mocked my appearance, called me twig boy, told me I'd never be loved because I was too plain to matter. I hoped Dad would notice, but he was always working or distracted. Meanwhile, he kept encouraging me to spend more time with Laura and the twins. "You need strong female role models," he'd say. Funny. They were the reason I lost my appetite. On shopping trips, Laura used Dad's black Amex to buy herself and the twins full-course meals, but told me to stick to soup or a side salad. "It's all your body needs anyway." She'd smile, eyes cold. I was starving. And scared. At night, I'd lie in bed on an empty stomach, my ribs aching, wondering what I had done to make her hate me. And this went on for years. When I was 14, Dad decided to take us all to Spain for spring break. I didn't want to go. I told Mom I'd rather stay home, but she insisted. "It's a family vacation, honey. Maybe things will get better." Better? One afternoon at the hotel pool, Laura made some snide comment about how I should stop playing basketball unless I wanted to. Snap in half. The twins laughed and called me Gumby. That was the last straw. Something in me cracked. I snapped back, called them double chins, and told Laura she looked like a beluga whale stuffed in a swimsuit. Her face strained. She ran upstairs crying. Dad pulled me aside that evening and tore into me. "You don't ever speak to women like that," he scolded. I tried to explain what they'd said to me, how they always started it, but he wouldn't hear it. He made me apologize while Laura locked herself in the bathroom, wailing like a soap opera actress. The twins looked on with smug satisfaction. I went home from that trip more defeated than I'd ever felt. I told Mom everything. She called Dad and said if Laura ever insulted me again, she'd involve Child Protective Services. After that, Laura backed off, at least verbally. But the silent war intensified. By 16, I had become invisible in my own father's house. She scheduled dinners for family-only nights, me excluded. She told her friends I was just her husband's weird son. She refused to cook when I visited and told me to make my own food. One night, I cooked a full dinner when she had guests over. Everyone raved. Laura smiled, but once they left, I overheard her telling a friend she'd been hoping I'd burn the chicken so she could blame me. That night, I sat in the dark in my room, wondering how someone could hate a kid that much for simply existing. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for what she did the night I turned 22. What happened that night didn't just ruin my birthday. It nearly ruined my life. The last time I saw my father as my father was the night he looked me in the eye and asked, "Carter, did you really try to force yourself on Laura?" I was still holding a fork when he said it. That birthday dinner was supposed to be a celebration. My 22nd. A small homecoming. I hadn't visited in a few months, and Dad insisted he had something important to tell me. Big news, he called it. My mom thought maybe he was finally ready to make amends. So, despite everything Laura had put me through, I flew down and showed up. The moment I walked into their house, I knew something was off. Harper and Haley were home too, sitting stiff on the couch like mannequins. Laura greeted me at the door with a forced smile. Her eyes, those were real. Cold, smug, prepared. Like she knew something I didn't. At dinner, Dad stood to make his announcement. He said he'd recently spoken to a lawyer and drafted a new will. "I want each of you to feel taken care of," he began, looking around the table with that oblivious grin that made me ache. He left the house to Laura. His retirement fund and vintage 1971 Ford Mustang, restored to mint condition, to me. The car wasn't just chrome and horsepower. It was memories. Road trips, baseball games, that one summer he let me steer while he drank his root beer float. That car was sacred between us. I thought, maybe that was his way of saying sorry. That he still saw me as his son. But as he continued, I saw Laura's face twitch. One eye squinted, just for a second, like she couldn't hold back the rage bubbling beneath her calm mask. The twins? They looked like someone had told them Santa was fake. They weren't just upset, they were furious. Laura tried to stay composed, but when Dad insisted he was being fair, she burst into tears. And then, without warning, she turned the table into a courtroom. Through sobs and gasps, she began a performance so calculated, it could have won her an Emmy. "I can't do this anymore," she cried. "I've kept this inside for years, to protect the family." "What are you talking about?" Dad asked, confused. Then came the words I'll never forget. "Carter, your son, tried to assault me." Repeatedly. For years. Everything went silent. I froze. She said it started after our family vacation to Spain, how I had become obsessed with her. That I stared too long. Tried to enter her bedroom at night. Got too close, when we were alone. Even made suggestive comments. I couldn't breathe. She said she kept quiet because I was a troubled boy, and she didn't want to break Dad's heart. And the worst part? She cried like she meant it. I jumped up, shouting, denying everything, but the room was already turning against me. Harper screamed that I was a predator. Haley threw her glass across the room and called me a sick pervert. And Dad? He just sat there, stunned, looking at me like he didn't recognize his own son. I shouted at Laura, "You're lying! You're a psycho!" But she didn't flinch. Just dabbed her eyes and said, "I can't stay silent anymore." And then, Dad asked the question that broke me. "Carter, did you do it?" Not, "I believe you." Not, "I know who you are." Just that. A quiet, unsure, trembling question. I felt like I was falling down a black hole. How could he ask that? How could he even consider it? I told him I never touched her. Never even thought about her like that. That she hated me from the beginning. That she was doing this because of the inheritance. But by then, the room had made up its mind. And then Laura said, "He shouldn't be around the girls anymore. They're terrified." That was all it took. Dad told me to leave. "Just for a while," he said. "Until we can figure things out." Figure what out? There was nothing to figure out. I had just been exiled from my own family based on a lie crafted by the woman who spent the last decade trying to erase me. I packed my bag in silence, shaking. As I stood at the front door, I glanced back at the place that once felt like home. Laura stood behind my dad, her arms around him like a snake, whispering something into his ear. He didn't even look at me. I flew straight to Mom's house. When she opened the door and saw my face, she didn't ask questions. She just said, "What did they do now?" I broke down in her arms. I told her everything. And what she said next chilled me to the bone. If she was willing to destroy your reputation over a car and some money, what else is she capable of? That night, I locked every social account. Changed my number. Deleted my dad from my phone. And tried to disappear. But the worst part? I wasn't just angry. I was afraid. Because now I knew what she was capable of. And that wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. I didn't sleep the night my father told me to leave. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Laura's face, smiling sweetly as she twisted the knife. It wasn't until days later, sitting in my childhood room at Mom's house, that something came flooding back to me. A memory I'd buried so deep, it only resurfaced when I heard my own voice crack mid-sentence. She said she was going to ruin me one day. I was 16 when it happened. Mom had gone on a business retreat for a weekend, so I stayed with Dad and Laura. I remember feeling cautiously optimistic. Laura had been unusually civil for weeks. I thought maybe she was finally done torturing me. That maybe, just maybe, things were getting better. That Saturday night, she hosted a wine night with two of her yoga friends. I wasn't allowed to join, obviously, so I made myself pasta and stayed upstairs. After dinner, I came down to clean up. The three of them were outside on the patio, laughing loud and drunk under string lights. I remember hearing my name and freezing in place just outside the sliding door. "He's polite, I'll give him that," one woman said. "But God, that face," Laura replied, her words slurred but venomous. "Looks like a watered-down version of Denise. I swear sometimes I want to punch him just for existing." The other women giggled uncomfortably. Then she said it. "I don't care what happens. By the time he turns 18, he's out. I don't want to see that boy's face a day past his birthday. I'll do whatever I have to." I didn't cry. I didn't gasp. I just walked upstairs, numb, and wrote it down in my notes app like it was homework. I titled it, "Threat from Laura, June 12, 2017. I'd forgotten all about that note until now. Back in the present, I found the old phone in my desk drawer. The screen was cracked, the battery almost dead. But it turned on. I scrolled through the notes. And there it was. Her promise. It wasn't a spur-of-the-moment meltdown at my birthday dinner. It was a plan. She had been waiting for the moment she could push me out of the family for good. She was playing the long game, and I was too naive to see it. That realization hit me like a car crash. I wasn't paranoid. I wasn't overreacting. I was being hunted. My mom urged me to consider legal action, but I was scared. I'd been accused of something unthinkable. Even if it wasn't true, even if there was no evidence, once something like that touches your name, it sticks. And worse? She hadn't just taken my father from me. She took away my trust in people. Every time I looked at a woman after that, I hesitated. My heartbeat raced when a female coworker asked to talk alone. I stopped dating. I skipped social events. I even quit playing in my rec basketball league after a teammate brought his cousin to watch us play, because she smiled at me, and my stomach dropped like I was about to be framed all over again. I became a ghost in my own life. And through all of it, I stayed silent. Because if Laura could convince my father that I was a monster, who else would listen to me? But my mom? She never doubted me for a second. She called every night, brought me groceries, stayed over for weekends when I was too anxious to be alone. For months, I was barely functioning. She made sure I survived. And slowly, over time, I started to heal. Then something unexpected happened. At a coffee shop near my apartment, I met someone. Her name was Mara. She was there every Thursday, working on her laptop, drinking green tea like it was a religion. We made eye contact a few times. Then one day, I saw her struggling to carry 3 books and a croissant. I offered her my spare seat. That's how it started. I didn't tell her the whole story. Not at first. But she noticed things, how I flinched when she laughed too loud, how I avoided physical touch unless she initiated it. "You've been hurt," she said one night, gently brushing my arm. "Yeah," I whispered. "And I'm still afraid of what that did to me." She nodded. "Then let's build something you're not afraid to touch." Mara didn't save me. She didn't need to. But she reminded me that not every woman is Laura. And that maybe, just maybe, I didn't deserve what happened to me. Still, I hadn't spoken to my dad in years. Until he called. 7 years later. Random number. Raspy voice. "Carter," he said. "I need to tell you something." My breath stopped. And the next words he spoke? They shattered everything. 7 years of silence, and he chose now to call. I almost didn't pick up. I thought it was spam. But something in me, maybe a flicker of that old, broken hope, answered. "Carter," he said, his voice raspier than I remembered. "Please don't hang up. I need to talk to you." It took me a moment to respond. I leaned against the counter, jaw clenched, waiting for the punchline. "Why?" I finally said. "You made it clear I'm not part of your family." There was a pause. Then the sound of him, crying. Full on, throat choke sobbing. The kind that doesn't come from guilt, but from loss. "I was wrong," he said. "I was so wrong." I said nothing. I just let the silence press down like a judge's gavel. "I should have listened to you. I should have known better." Again I waited. The man who once threw me out of my childhood home was now breathing into my ear like he just climbed a mountain. And then he said it. "She cheated on me." That got my attention. "Laura?" I asked, voice flat. He nodded through the phone. "For years. With my best friend. Mark. Mark. The man who gave me my first baseball glove. Who was there when Dad taught me to ride a bike. That Mark. She told me everything," he continued. "Didn't even hide it. Said she was tired of pretending. Said she never loved me. That she married me for the money." I almost laughed. "She confessed?" I asked. "She laughed," he replied. "Said I was a fool. Said she never expected me to actually believe her when she accused you." And there it was. Everything I had suffered for. Every sleepless night. Every panic attack. Every therapy session. Every job I turned down because I was afraid to be alone with a woman in an office. All because she lied, and he believed her. "What did you do?" I asked. "I kicked her out," he said. "Filed for divorce. Her lawyer tried to fight for alimony, but..." His voice cracked again. "We had a prenup. And she violated it with the affair. She got nothing. Nothing. After stealing everything from me, she walked away with nothing. But it didn't feel like justice. She said she did it because you reminded her of your mom," he whispered. "That she couldn't stand the way you existed in our home. That every time she saw your face, she saw the life I had before her." I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Then he said the words I never thought I'd hear. "She admitted she made it all up, Carter. The accusations. The stories. All of it." I waited. "I need to see you," he said. "I want to make this right. I want my son back." That's when something inside me shattered, not in pain, but in clarity. He had chosen her lies over my truth. And now that she was gone, now that his world was in ashes, now he wanted to rebuild the bridge he burned? No. You didn't lose a son, I said quietly. You gave him away. But Carter, he tried. I was a kid, I snapped. And you let her destroy me. His silence was confirmation. Don't call me again, I finished. We're done. And I hung up. The messages started a day later. His side of the family, cousins, uncles, even my old babysitter, texting things like, "He's really sorry," and "You're just being bitter," and "He's suffered enough." But the one that broke me came from his sister, my Aunt Lorraine. "He lost everything, Carter. Don't be cruel. He was tricked." Cruel? Was I cruel for surviving a lie? I showed Mara the texts. She stared at them like they were poison. "You don't owe them anything," she said. "Not 1 second of your peace." She was right. But the damage was already done. I sat on the couch that night and cried harder than I had in years. Not because of what Laura did, but because the person who was supposed to protect me had become my executioner. And now, suddenly, he wanted to be my father again? No. He gave up that right the moment he told me to leave his house. But I still had one thing left to do. Something I'd been avoiding for too long. I had to tell my mom the whole truth. All of it. What Laura said when I was 12. What she whispered when no one was around. The starvation. The psychological warfare. The threats. The insults. The manipulation. Everything. So I invited her over. Mara too. And that night, I opened my mouth and let it all pour out. That night, I sat across from the only two people who ever truly saw me. My mom and Mara. Mara held my hand. My mom watched me with that old, familiar worry in her eyes, the same one she wore when she used to pack me an extra sandwich on the weekends I spent with Dad. As if she always knew something was wrong, but didn't know just how deep the rot went. Until now. I told them everything. Not just the birthday dinner. Not just the accusation. I started from the beginning. The threats at 12. The whispered insults. The soup-only meals. How she'd scream at me for waking up late, then schedule family events I wasn't invited to. How she planted the idea in my head that I was the problem. That I didn't belong. I told them about the trip to Spain. The moment I snapped and Laura used it to spin her web. I read aloud the note I had written when I was 16, Laura's promise to get me out of this house by 18. My mom's lips trembled as she took the old phone from my hands, scrolling through each word like they were pieces of broken glass. When I told her about the birthday dinner, about the fake tears, the assault accusation, the moment Dad asked, "Did you really do that?" my voice cracked. And that's when I broke. "I needed him to believe me," I said. "Just once. And he couldn't even do that." My mom stood and wrapped her arms around me. Tight. Fierce. Like she was trying to hold together every piece of me that Laura had spent years tearing apart. "I'm so sorry, Carter," she whispered. "I should have fought harder. I didn't know, God, I didn't know it was that bad." Mara was crying too. Not loudly. Just tears running down her cheeks like grief escaping in silence. And that's when I knew something had changed. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was healing. I blocked every number from my dad's side of the family. I shut down old accounts. I even called a lawyer to ensure there would be no possible path for my father to leave me anything in the future, no inheritance, no property, no tangled legacy I didn't want. I wanted freedom. And I got it. 2 months later, I proposed to Mara. She said yes. We're planning to move across the country, closer to my mom, who recently retired. We're building something together, a life, a family, a future untainted by the rot of the past. And the car? The Mustang my dad once promised me? He sold it. That was his final message to me, I think. One last petty, silent punishment. I saw it listed online by a private seller. The photos still had my dad's initials etched on the glove box. I didn't even blink. Because here's the thing. He thought he was punishing me. But all he really did was free me. Free from obligation. From guilt. From the twisted illusion that family always knows best. Some people think closure comes with apologies. Mine came when I realized I didn't need one. So if you're reading this and wondering whether to forgive someone who only showed up after the damage was done, remember this. Closure isn't an open door. It's locking the one they walked out of. Forever.